Oh, man. You know, every time I post a picture of my film collection of some sorts on Facebook, that specifically that Criterion group, I get tons of likes, man. I got like 130 likes on that picture.
You're very popular.
I know, I'm popular.
I'm insanely jealous.
I feel good. I feel good about it.
I know.
Getting that love from
good.
Facebook from people I barely know.
I know, from strangers. And there's nothing like love and appreciation from people you don't know.
Oh yeah, of course.
That validation.
But you know, I mean,
affirmation.
We know that part of the reason we collect these movies is to show them off to people. Be like, look at my collection.
There's always a sense of internal pride, I guess. Yeah. I mean, you put, hours of your time and much,
a lot of my
money into it. Lots of money into something. Yeah, you better get something out of it. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, we get the hours and hours of entertainment. We get, the wealth of knowledge that these movies provide us. But we also get, the idea that, we feel, proud. It's not exceptional because that sounds like egotistical. But, you feel good when you, say, hey, I've got, this movie, that movie, and all that kind of stuff. Especially now within a world that has shifted massively to, digital media.
Yeah.
Physical media is not dwindling, but it's waning.
We're definitely
somewhat.
becoming like the guys that have like the records, instead of CDs, that just collects records. We're becoming them guys.
Even now, I would say CDs are
they're even
considered retro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like retro collecting.
Yeah, you don't see anybody walking around with just
CDs.
Nobody's walking around with CD players and
I don't know. Nobody's walking around with their Walkman.
Yeah, Walkman.
The Sony Walkman.
Remember when you walked around with a CD? You can get the CD player, the skip thing that would help prevent skip.
Yeah, you had to get if you got like a good one. Yeah, you get the one that would not scratch your CDs or skip. Oh yeah, those.
You had to get one of them for you had to get one of them for your dashboard in your car. Because there was a time where you couldn't really get a good CD player in the car, so you had to actually get a CD player and put it on your dashboard, and then did you ever get the CD player Walkman to car adapter? Yes.
Which was a fake a
fake
cassette tape.
Yeah.
That had a wire connected to your CD player, and then you put it in, and that's how you were able to do it. It was basically an old-fashioned version of the aux cable that people have now with their phones. It's basically like that, but with CD players. But I'm old enough to remember slightly before we even had iPods, people walked around my high school with CD players and headphones and earbuds.
In the early 2000s, that was still something going on.
Yeah. What's crazy is we're old enough. We've gone from the Walkman CD players to the iPods, and now to people streaming music on their phones, through apps versus downloading MP3 files and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we've kind of gone through multiple iterations of musical acquirement over the last 20 years or so.
Our generations went through the biggest change of technology out of any
constant shifts.
Yeah.
Constant shifts.
But this is funny because I feel like that this nostalgia trip we're having really plays into the movie we're talking about today.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And we are once again this is once again the Cinema Discovery Project with your co-hosts, me, Andrew Cabral, and Stephen Billings.
Thank you.
And today we're going to be taking a look at a movie that kind of it was a foundational film for our friendship in a way.
Yeah.
Because 2016 is when it came out. 2016 is when we met.
Yes.
And it is John Carney's Sing Street.
Your mother and I really are under a lot of pressure at the moment.
We had a look at our accounts and...
We're taking you out of school.
We're not taking you out of school, we're transferring you. You'll be new then. What's your name?
Connor Lawler.
Shut up! We have a black shoe policy here, Mr. Lawler.
They're brown, they're quite sensible. They're not black.
Who knows what this new prison will do for you? This is your time.
You see, it's beautiful. How come you're not in school?
I'm a model.
Cool. Do you want to be in a video for my band?
See, if you're in a band, sing me a song.
Take on me.
We need to form a band.
What? Connor's putting a band together.
Oh, good Jesus.
You play every instrument known to mankind.
Probably.
Show 'em.
And it's kind of, I would consider, one of the more underrated films over the last 4 years or so to come out.
Definitely.
Especially, for 2016.
Yeah, I mean, this was the same year La La Land came out, and so when we're talking about, musical type of movies, that, of course, La La Land got all the attention, especially at the awards, and this kind of got buried somewhat, but it's kind of, I think stayed in the consciousness. It was on Netflix for a while. And this movie made money. The movie made, I think, $13 to $14 million on a $4 million budget. So it made us money. And
I would say, yeah, it did. Yeah, and for a small movie that probably only had a limited release. I could probably check
this
that.
is an Irish film. He's an Irish filmmaker.
Yes, John
mostly
Carney
Irish actors, I think, for the most part.
I definitely heard the accents.
Yeah, the accents are everywhere. But yeah, this is a movie that very much I can relate to, because in many ways. But this is a movie about a kid who kind of he's kind of put in like a fish out of water situation. He's coming from a upscale kind of higher class school situation and goes to like the lower class Catholic school, and there he kind of like sees a girl one day and kind of wants to win her over by, saying he's in a band and wants to put her in her music put her in their music videos. So it's also a bit of a period piece. It's set in 1985. Yes.
Which is, right in the middle of the 80s decade. The soundtrack of this movie is fantastic. With not only the songs that they come up with in the film, but I think the contemporary music they use at the time.
Yeah.
Which is, I would say, definite inspiration for the music that they play in the
movie.
They'll
use a certain popular band that he gets influenced by, like Aha or Duran Duran.
Yeah.
A lot, and then they make some fun of some of the music of the time with Phil Collins and Genesis. And so,
I know, Genesis. But I guess we'll get right into it. So, I guess right beforehand, if you don't know who John Carney is, he has made several films over the last, I would say, 13 years or so.
There's some movies of his I haven't seen, but really it starts with the movie Once.
Yes.
Is where he started kind of coming out.
Yeah, Once came out in 2007, is kind of like his breakout film. Before then, he had done a couple of features in the late 90s, actually mid to late 90s and early 2000s, some television work, but I would say Once, Begin Again, and Sing Street are probably his three most well-known films. And yes,
I quoted this way back in the day that I call this his Love and Music trilogy. Nope, I don't know if anybody's branded it that, but that's what I call it.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it definitely... love and music is kind of the two main themes of at least Sing Street, most definitely.
Yeah.
And he is, like you said, he's an Irish filmmaker. He's from Dublin, Ireland.
Yeah.
The film is set in Dublin, Ireland, in 1985, like we said, and it takes place. It centers around the young kid called, what's his name, Connor.
Connor, yeah.
Yeah, Connor.
Cosmo.
Yeah, she calls him Cosmo. We'll get to that. Yeah, he's Connor, and he is about 14, 15 years old, around there. And right away, the film starts off with him playing guitar in his room. And in the background, you hear his parents arguing. And that right there sets the tone. I think the basis and the underlying plot line throughout the movie is that his parents are basically in the middle of splitting up.
Using your problems and having bad outlets, which there's a character in the story that has a bad home situation that is kind of the villain for most of the movie. And he's kind of the opposite. He has a bad home life somewhat, but he doesn't, take it out on anybody else. He uses it in his art. So he uses it in a positive way. But yeah, he's kind of, and even though that something kind of serious has happened in the scene, you hear his parents arguing. They use it as kind of comedy because he starts like repeating the things his parents are saying while he's playing, and it's kind of funny because he says it in like funny voices. You know.
He also like slowly closes his door to kind of like shut them out. Shut them out. But he also has an older brother, Brendan, who's played by the actor Jack Rayner, who I think steals every single scene.
He steals the movie. I've got a lot
to say about his character.
If it wasn't for how good the music is, he steals the movie. He's the other best part of the movie. Yeah.
There's an underlying character stuff with him in the movie that they only touch on. They really don't fully explore because, you know, they're concentrating on Connor and his, you know, what he's doing. But it's just fascinating. And we'll bring it up as
I was going to say, I think that his plot and theme kind of plays hand in hand with the main theme, but we'll get to it. Yeah. So,
and he also has, I want to say, he has a sister.
Yeah.
But I couldn't tell whether she was older than him or younger.
It seems like she's the middle child. She's the middle child.
Yeah, it does seem like she's a middle child.
Yeah. Because she's getting ready. She's saying she wants to be an architect.
Yeah, she's very. What's interesting is all of these, you know, they're all different. The siblings, they're all different. The older brother is he's dropped out of college. He's kind of he's got no direction in life.
Somewhat of you could say a burnout of sorts.
A burnout, yeah, kind of. And then you have the middle child she's very studious. You know, we always see her like studying for her exams or doing an essay or doing something for school. Like you said, she's really, you know, academically inclined. Yeah. And then you have Connor, who's kind of trying to figure things out, which a lot of people around his age.
Yeah, I was going to say this is the.
It's a coming of age
movie. Literally, I mean, this is literally the time where you know the puberty and all the hormones and this is the peak moment here.
You're
mid-teens.
Mid-teens, yeah. I was going to say early teens, but it's more like mid-teens. Yeah. That 15, 16-year-old range where, like, you're not quite a kid anymore, but you're not yet an adult. So what are you doing? What are you trying to figure out?
You start exploring, You start
exploring, start trying to figure things out. And I mean, my 15, 16-year-old self is vastly different than my, 33-year-old self.
Yeah.
You know? It's vastly different. So your mid-teens are not your end-all, be-all of who you are, but you're just trying to figure things out.
Sure.
And he's trying to figure things out. And it doesn't help that his parents are going through this just volatile separation.
Yeah.
And in doing so, he now has to switch schools.
Yeah, they get caught into the kitchen and...
Yeah, they get called into the kitchen, and basically the parents say, we got to start cutting things out of the budget, and the brother right away picks up on it. He's a lot smarter than I think people think he is. He's like, they're taking you out of school. He's like, they're taking me out of school. He's all happy. Huh? Like, no, we're not taking him out of school. We're going to a different school.
Yeah.
He's going to Sing Street, coincidentally, is the name of the school as well. And it's a Christian Brothers school. So we don't really know what school he's coming from, but we assume that it's probably a private, more expensive school than this Christian Brothers Sing Street school.
Yeah.
And the reason why he's going there is because they have to cut things out of the budget. And so that's what happens to him. And I think we cut to like his first day there.
Yeah,
it's just him walking through this.
Yeah, they have this song. There's a song that's "Stay Clean" from Motorhead playing.
Yes, the Motorhead song.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's basically like it's like the opening of "Lean on Me," but with a bunch of white Irish kids. Basically, in a way, like it's just kids like fighting and like he gets a rat thrown at him.
You get a great. It's just like it's a tracking shot and like a reverse shot of a POV shot of what he's seeing and what's going on around him, and you can just tell that this school is pretty rough.
It's gonna be rough.
It's pretty rough. I mean, like we said, there's kids fighting. There's a cross section of all kinds of different kids and whatnot. Like it's a rat thrown at him, like you said, and it's like, man, you can kind of spot the bully right away too. So needless to say, his introduction and first day doesn't go so well.
Yeah, the bully's Barry, by the way.
His name is Barry, and right away
you can tell he's going to be the guy.
He wants to pick on him.
Yeah, you can tell.
right away.
But so he's in his first day of class. Kids are like smoking in the classroom. Teacher's up there. He's like barely can hear. He's like writing stuff on the board. He like takes a drink of alcohol, of course, because he's Irish.
It's an old, I mean, this is an old school Catholic school, like
uniforms.
the teachers are all the strict, uniforms, which you still have today. I went to Catholic school from grade 7 through 12.
Oh, sorry, man.
And I went to a Catholic college, but obviously you didn't have to wear uniforms. But I mean, we had to wear uniforms. Middle school was like shirt and tie, like you see these kids wear.
Yeah.
No sweaters or anything like that. No jackets.
No sweater vests.
But no sweater vest. Never had to pull that off. And then high school for me was like polo shirts and khakis.
Yeah.
And you have to have it was like special uniform with the school insignia on it and pants with the school insignia.
Did you get to wear any of your Boston hats?
I did.
No, nice,
I did.
Man. So they weren't that strict. They weren't that strict.
I don't know. What was interesting though is I was straight laced, always, firm dress code, sticking to the firm dress code and all that stuff, which you actually get into in this movie, actually, which is kind of interesting. But so he's there, and right away things don't start off well for him. Like you said, like the classroom setting, he's supposed to be in French class, and the professor is writing on the board in Latin, and doesn't even realize it.
Yeah.
And
then the kind of the real villain, the main villain of the story comes in.
Yeah, the principal,
brother Baxter.
Brother Baxter, yeah. I was taught by brothers in high school, and they were the principal was a brother, one of the religion teachers was a brother, one of the history teachers was another brother, and they were not like this. Granted, this was 2002 versus 1985 Ireland.
Yeah.
But right away you can tell this guy's like evil. He's got that evil villain mustache and everything.
Yeah.
And he picks on.
Well, he says something about you don't even. He says something about the French class, to the teacher.
Yeah, like these kids don't even know where France is.
Yeah,
and
Connor
does because he was. I think he's just. I mean,
well, he's just a little bit higher educated, and there is.
You can tell he's more educated.
Potentially, it says that there's possibility that that's where his school was in France.
I think they mostly make fun of him.
Yeah, maybe that's what they said he was maybe from there. The kid makes fun
But I
of
don't
him.
doubt that he probably learned French in school, because I know I learned French in Catholic school.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I know right away, like, where he's coming from in terms of, like, learning, like, certain language and whatnot. But he says, it's on the continent above Spain. And everybody's like, oh, look at the big brain on this kid, basically. And then the brother notices that he doesn't have the correct shoes. He doesn't have, I guess the dress code calls for black shoes.
Yeah.
Black dress shoes, I believe, or whatever. And he doesn't have it. So
he gives
a conflict.
He gives him a warning and tells him that the next day he needs to have black shoes. So then, he gets through his first day and he's leaving, and then this is when he has his first confrontation with Barry.
Yeah, well, he has the first confrontation with. Doesn't he have it in? No, that's the second day. I was gonna say in the canteen, as they call it.
Yeah. He has a moment with the kid. Yeah,
and he's like, "Oh, where's the restaurant?" And the kid like, "Well, restaurant? I mean, canteen." He's like, "Oh yeah, canteen." And right away you could see the difference in.
The class.
How they refer to things.
Yeah.
And the kid's like, "Yeah, what are you talking about?" So yeah, and that's where you get the first confrontation with Barry, as you said.
Yeah.
He brings him to the bathroom, makes him dance for him. He's
he holds the slingshot at him.
Yeah. Yes, he holds the slingshot, but he's basically accused him of being gay, and to prove that he's not gay by dancing or something.
Well, he tells him to tells him to dance like a little queer is what he calls him, or something like that. Yeah, and then he tells him to pull his pants down to do it. And which honestly, the behavior makes me think that he's a closeted gay.
Could very well be so. That seems to be. I've always found that odd, whether you see it in movies or hear about it in real life or whatever, where like people will pick on people for being homosexual, but they'll make them do very homosexual things to prove that they're not gay. Yeah. It makes no sense to me. It does kind of show that there's this self-hating.
This plays out very similarly in that show on Netflix. what's the sex show on Netflix?
Sex Education?
Yeah, Sex Education. Where the bully ends up being homosexual.
Yes. Yeah, he's repressed. Yeah. And that's why he
has a hard a father that's very,
very harsh on him. And what is interesting is, I mean,
that's not explored, of course, in this movie.
It's not explored that, but it could be an underlying reason why this kid's a bully and specifically homophobic like this. Yeah. Or it could just be the fact that homophobia has been a massive part of our society for several generations.
I mean, if you're sticking to the language of the time, then yes, it was easy to call somebody gay or queer, and it'd be like just a derogatory
way. Yeah. But he basically says he says no, I'm not going to do that, and the kid just
backs down. He just leaves,
backs down, walks away. Yeah. But now he's basically gonna torture him instead. It's slowly over.
It's not over. So I think now we go back to his home and they're eating or something. Something comes on the television. It's a music video.
Yeah, they're watching a Duran Duran music video.
Yeah.
Because MTV, I believe, has not just hit the scene, but music videos are starting to arrive and to be more sophisticated, be more in the public conscious, like with MTV, and it's becoming a new form of music consumption. And right away we see that there's a generational divide with the parents' generation and the new kids' generation.
They're not the Beatles.
They're not the Beatles. Why the dad is like, why can't they sing live? What are they trying to hide? And then Jack Rayner's character, Brendan, is trying to tell him it's not about that. This is a new form of art. It's a new form of music consumption. Like I said, it's new. And I find that kind of fascinating because every generation always has a conflict and separation with the previous generation. Yeah. That's a running theme I've had going in my mind for years now because I've seen it so many times and it's been explored in so many movies. Yeah. And it just shows that again, that there's this divide and there's no bridge between the two generations, and therefore there's just a lack of communication between the two, and therefore negative consequences happen with it. I always go back to Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean, where his generation can't connect with the older generation, and you're seeing the divide happen, and therefore you get the explosion of expression and protest with the hippie generation in the 60s. But that's a whole thing to go down to a different era. But all you need to know is that there's that generational divide in this movie, and you see it kind of throughout it. So they're watching Duran Duran, and the brother comments like, John Taylor is one of the best bassists around, truly, fantastic, and Duran Duran could go either way in terms of being great or just good.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the first times you start to hear something that the brother says that later Connor will repeat. Like he knows it. It's something that he discovered on his own, but it's just stuff he's learning from his brother. And I think it's very foundational for the relationship with the brother, and it shows you how much he really admires his brother, though his brother doesn't really think that he has done much with his life.
Yeah, the brother has a lot of, we'll get into it, I would say self-loathing, self-hating. Yeah. Really doesn't, value himself very highly. But the younger brother, I think, values him constantly because he's constantly going back to him for advice. Yeah. What is interesting is that this kind of sparks, I think, the music of the movie, if you will, sure. Because I think then this starts things down a certain path. So we get to the next day. The next day at school, where he shows up once again, wrong shoes, yeah. And the principal calls him, Brother Baxter calls him in and says, "Thought we talked about this, that you need to have the correct shoes." And then Connor's like, "Well, I just bought them before."
They're fashionable. They're fashionable. They're stylish.
Yeah. They're what's he said? Oh, they're label or something like that. No, they're brand.
They're brands. They're good. They're not bad shoes. Yeah.
Then they're not they're not runners, which I guess are sneakers or something that. A lot of colloquial slang language in the film that I think if you're not quite aware of it, you may miss.
Well, I was going to say also, if it's your first time watching it, you might want to put subtitles on because just the accents.
Some of the accents are
very
more difficult than the others. Yeah, they're more heavy than the others. Specifically, the character we're going to meet very soon, I think, has the heaviest accent in the movie. And so the brother basically says, okay, if you like them so much, you can leave them here and pick them up at 4 o'clock at the end of the day after school.
Yeah.
And then basically he has to walk around all day with no shoes on. And that's something you probably couldn't get away with doing today.
No.
So he does that. We just see him like walking through like the school hallways and through like puddles and stuff. And he goes to the canteen. He gets a Mars bar, and then this is where Barry attacks him again by stealing his Mars bar. No, he hits him, steals his Mars bar, and then I think he hits him again.
He hits him, and then he throws the Mars bar back at him, and hits him. Then lunch ends, and then
this is where we meet Darren.
Yeah.
Who has probably the thickest accent
he is
in the movie.
He's what we call he's the entrepreneur of the group. He really he wants to be the Renaissance man. He kind of pitches himself as a manager.
A manager. He even has a business card.
Yeah.
But he has no phone number on it because he doesn't have a phone.
He just says just call around.
He just says like ask around.
Just ask around. You can get me. It reminds me of Rocky, where he's just like, I don't have a phone, and he just like yells out a window, yo, yeah.
And it's just kind of, I mean, this is a time, obviously before cell phones, before the internet. Sure. I mean, we grew up in the era before cell phones and stuff like that, where you had to like call people on rotary phones and buttons and all that stuff. But this is like even before then, where like some people just didn't have phones, so you just had to
wait till you see them the next time.
You had to ask around for when you saw them next time. So they're just standing outside of school, and this is where we see Rafina for the first time, who's portrayed by Lucy Boynton,
and she started to break out a little bit.
She's been in a few films since. She was in Bohemian Rhapsody, which is a film some people like, some people don't.
I don't love the movie, but she was good in the movie.
Yeah, she's good in the movie. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody, we could save that for another time, even though we talked about it when it came out, didn't we?
I think we did.
A few times.
For short, we didn't love it.
I will say, I think Rami Malek's amazing in it, but I think he's better than the movie. I mean, it's not...
I go back and forth on him even being that great in the movie, too, but, you know.
I don't think let me put it this way. I don't want to get down the road because we got to stay on target, but I don't think I thought he was great, but not the best of the year.
He wasn't Ray Charles. He wasn't Jamie Foxx Ray Charles good.
Right.
I think it
wasn't like they shouldn't have handed him the Oscar good, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But back to Lucy Boynton. She was in Sing Street, and this is kind of her first major role. Everything else looks like kind of small television roles, stuff like that. And she has since gone on to go on. She was in, like we said, Bohemian Rhapsody. She was in that movie Rebel in the Rye, which was about J.D. Salinger, I believe, where Nicholas Hoult played J.D. Salinger, the author. But anywho, she's really great in this movie.
Yes.
And this is where we see her for the first time.
Yeah, they're like across the street, and th're leaving the school courtyard, and then he just looks over, and there she is standing on a...
He's like, who is that? Yeah. And she's like, and Darren explains to him, oh, that's... She stands out here all the time. She just is always
there. I don't know who she is.
Yeah, she's always there, but she goes out. She doesn't go out with anybody here. She's not even in school. She goes out with somebody older, stuff like that.
He kind of calls her a cunt, though he doesn't. He's like, she doesn't talk to anybody.
That's not the best language.
Cunt. And but yeah, so he's like, kind of love at first sight.
Right. And I'll say this though, Connor, for someone who up to this point I consider to be rather shy and meek, if you will, goes up to her and talks to her.
Well, I mean, he kind of shows some
bold. It's bold.
It is. I was gonna say the great thing about, I think one of the other themes of this movie is how when you're at this age, you're a lot more willing to take chances on things because you're not worried about the consequences. And like some people are different, obviously, but when you're at that age, your hormones drive you. A lot of surface level things drive you. But he does show some balls with Barry, and when he says no, so he's got a little bit of he's not like just a pushover. In the sense of his confidence,
right?
So yeah,
so he goes talks to her and he's like, I think he asks her if she needs a light, for her cigarette,
because she's just holding a cigarette in her mouth, and he's like, "You need a light?" He's like, "Nah, I'm not smoking. I quit."
Yeah, he's like, she's like, I don't. Yeah, I just quit. I don't need any more, or something like that. And he's like, good. I don't have any matches.
Yeah.
Interesting icebreaker, but all right. And he basically tells her that. Well,
she brings up the fact that she's a model.
Yeah, she's a model. Yeah, like she's a model.
He asks her if she goes to school there, and she's like, no, I don't go to school. I'm a model.
Right, she's a model, and she's like she's trying to get work in London or something like that. And then he brings up that like, hey, do you want to be like in a video
for my band?
Yeah. And she's like, oh, you have a band, and he's like, and then she asks him like, sing something.
Yeah.
Sing something from the radio. And
he's like, sing that new song from Aha.
This thing song from Aha, which everybody's probably everyone's seen the video.
Yeah. So then he convinces her that he's like, look.
And the reason why she asks him that because he asks her for her number to get in contact with her, and then that's when she makes that ultimatum like sing something to basically prove that he's in a band. But what is interesting is as a viewer of the movie, that he doesn't have a band yet, so you're like, oh, okay. And
she asks if he has a manager, and he's like, yeah, him across the street.
Yeah, him across the street. Like, yeah, and so basically he leaves with her phone number, and then he goes talks to Darren. He's like, hey, we have to start a band.
We got to start a band, man. Do you know any musicians?
Do you know any musicians? And this is when we get we get introduced to Eamon.
Yeah. Who I love McKenna. Also. He's great in the movie.
Yeah, and basically we get taken
I would call him the talent.
yeah, definitely the talent. We get taken over there, and the basically his dad, I guess, is in like a band. He does he performs at like pubs and weddings and stuff like that. So he's got all kind of instruments set.
Well, he did do that, but now he's in jail.
Yeah, but now they don't. Now, they get to that later, where like apparently he's in like prison.
Yeah.
But what is interesting is that when the mom opens the door and they're looking for Eamon, and they mention like they're here to see if he'd be interested in a band, and she's like, oh.
Great.
Because she has great like oh great, another one. And it's like because she knows that like the probably doesn't have a great relationship with the father who's in a band, and now the son is definitely taking over the father's place as a musician. And he can play. Basically, the whole thing is that he can play any instrument.
Basically,
and there's this whole little montage.
Yeah, there's a whole montage. He starts out playing normal instruments, and then suddenly he starts playing like a flute, and then he like starts playing like bongos.
The xylophone and stuff. And like
that.
What's
the bagpipes? He starts playing bagpipes.
Yep. Starts playing bagpipes.
But I love the expression he has. Like he's playing bongos, and then he just stops. And he's like, "Okay, that's all I can do." Like this thing where he's like, "Is there anything else?" But then the
thing is that he plays them all well.
Yeah.
At least from what I see. So he's going to be their lead guitarist.
Yeah. They basically ask him like, "What do you want to do?" And he's like, "I want to play guitar and help write songs."
Yeah. And that's what he's going to do. Connor's going to be the singer and also co-write songs. Darren's going to be the manager. But now we need to.
Well, they got to fund the rest of the band. So they're like eating. They're like in the kitchen, and the mom's kind of getting involved as they're talking about stuff and figuring out like where they could practice there. And the mom's like, you can't quit your job. You gotta practice on the weekends on the certain time.
Yeah, you can't practice on Saturday because you work in, I think, at like a grocery store or something. Yeah. You can't give up that job. So they're gonna practice Monday and Wednesdays.
Yeah. But then finally he's just like, we can't talk about anything here. My mom's gonna keep butting in. It's that moment where your parents are like kind of like in the way. You feel like they're in the way, so you're just like, let's
all the time.
Yeah. So you're like, we got to leave. Let's go somewhere else.
And we didn't bring up the most interesting aspect of Eamon is he's massively fascinated with rabbits.
Yeah.
He's got like a few rabbit pets.
Yeah.
And they're all just kind of like running around his house. And so Darren says that there's.
And his mom, before he leaves, says, "Hey, don't smoke." He's like, "Mom, I don't smoke." And then, of course, the next scene he's smoking.
Yeah, the very next scene, they're smoking like in his room.
Yeah.
and then, from there they go, because Darren says, "Oh, there's someone that he knows that like lives at his flat that could probably may also be."
He's a black guy.
Yeah.
Well, this is where you get some of that kind of racist talk.
It's pretty racist. Granted, 1985. England,
He's the only black guy in Dublin.
Ireland,
he's black. He's got to know how to play an instrument.
Yeah, he's probably like how many do you know in Dublin? So they go and visit him, and then the mother opens the door, and she's like, "Oh, we're looking for your son or whatever. His name is Ngig.
I think so. Yeah.
Like that." And she's like, and she's like, "Oh no, that's 4 doors down." And then he's like, "Oh, sorry." And it's like, "No, it's like
you're talking about
how many? Yeah, what are you talking
we're
about?
We're the only black family here.
Yeah, we're the only black family here. Yeah. So how do you know my son Ngig?" And they're like, "Oh, we want to see if he'll play in a band with us." So they meet him and they ask him, "Hey, we're forming a band. Do you play any instruments?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like,
"I think I might be able to."
I think I might be able to, or something like that. I think he end up playing.
He ends up playing keyboards.
Yes, keyboards. Yeah, because then they fill out the rest of the band. They put a flyer up at the school.
Yeah.
And these 2 kids, one can play bass and one can play drums.
Yeah.
And they fill out and they grab the flyer, and then there's the band.
There's the band.
You got the basic components.
Yeah, and so now they're like figuring out I think did they have a practice first before they try to figure out the name of the band?
Well, I think they then try to figure out the band name. Like one way,
and of course,
wants to call it the Rabbits.
Yeah, the Rabbits.
But they end up settling on Sing Street as the name of the band, which is the title of the movie. There you go.
Bam. And I love when they leave the room they're in, and it's like that whole slow motion and then the song and the song's 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, because they're hanging out in where the rabbits hang out in a little shed or something.
Yeah.
And that's where they're trying to figure out the band name, and then they move out in slow motion. It's very much like the opening of Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
Where everyone's moving in slow motion for just
dramatic effect. Yeah.
Dramatic effect.
Yeah.
And then so now is when they're going to develop their first song.
Well, I think they try to do a practice, and they try to do a cover. They start doing
the cover.
Yeah.
They do a cover first. I can't remember who they cover. And then they do the cover. They record it on cassette tape.
Yeah, I love this.
He plays it for his brother, his brother Brendan. And we get that transition from there to him playing it. And the brother goes, "Yeah, it's shit."
Yeah, well, he just takes he takes it out and he steps on it.
You're not a cover band.
He takes it out stomps on it. He's like, "That was shit."
He takes it out. He pulls the
tape.
The tape apart, takes the tape apart, and the Connor's like, you can record over that. But he's like, no. He takes it out, he stomps on it.
He goes to the door and starts acting like he's airing out fart noises.
Oh yeah, he's like, you know what I'm doing? Airing out the stink of that tape.
Yeah. And then
it's such a brother thing to do.
Yeah.
It really is.
And this shows you, like we said, the connection with them, how he looks up to him and he wants his opinion, and also it sends him in the direction of writing his own music. He's like, look, don't waste your time doing covers.
You're not a cover band.
Express
band.
Express yourself with your own art. Don't take somebody else's art. So then I think they start kind of right.
This is when we start their first song, which is Riddle of the Model.
Yeah, Riddle of the Model.
Their first song. And this, he writes it.
Yeah, and this
he basically writes it because of
Rafina. Yeah, I mean, and
it's kind of his main inspiration from writing
everything,
most of the songs.
Yeah, and the scene where they're writing that song, it just. I mean, I was in a band and around this age, not this age, but a little older than this, and just the process of writing something is so it's legit. Somebody comes up with a guitar riff and they're just like, I got some lyrics here, I have a couple, and then you just kind of work it out, and they go through kind of building up the main chorus in a scene and the riddle of the model. And then there's this Japanese thing.
Yeah, what we didn't cover is that he used the same words that his brother said about Duran Duran. He used in order to win Eamon over to get
Yeah, back when you're talking to
join
Eamon the
band.
first time, he's trying to show that he knows something about music, and
he talks about John Taylor and whatnot, Duran Duran, but that's a connection to the brother. So, and they called them to describe like their sound. He keeps referring to themselves as futurists.
Yeah, which
is fascinating to me. The way he describes it is basically, it's not the old style of music that you're used to hearing. It's like constantly like.
They're always evolving based off their influences of newer music.
Which is rather fascinating because, as we've seen through many, many forms of art, there seems to be a lot of mimicry or people just copying other people or taking influence from other people and then, basically copying them. We see a lot of copying in art a lot. But
I think what
sometimes...
I think what you figure out through the movie is by the time you get to the last songs that are kind of revealed, they become more and more honest and more their own thing.
Right.
Because they start out mimicking...
And I say because they started out, doing a cover of a song. Now they're going to write their own music, and then they get their own inspiration and stuff. But usually you start out kind of copying or like
you got to find your niche.
You got to get your foundation. Yeah. You got to get your foundation. And that happens a lot in music and art in general. So now they're doing Riddle of the Model, and this is going to be...
And somehow they create these great recordings on this tape player. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. I don't know if, for those of you who are not aware, cassette tape isn't like the best audio quality you could ever get.
And this is just one track. It's not like multi-track or anything.
Yeah, it's not multi... And also they're using like an old school tape recorder.
They're just that good, man.
It's not exactly hi-fi or high audio quality.
There's always a little bit of you gotta the disbelief. Suspend your disbelief a little bit with certain things like that. But but he brings the tape back to her and says, "This is the song for the video," and she acts like she doesn't remember. He's like,
the boy with the band.
Yeah.
The boy with the band is like, him. So she's going to be in their video, and he's like, we're recording this Saturday.
It's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity.
In the back of this place, and it's a great opportunity. She's like, I'll make it there if I can.
Yeah.
So they go to that location, and they're setting up and stuff, and they decide that they're going to wear, like, costumes, if you will, or something like that. Like a band uniform.
Which they make a funny joke about the village people.
Yeah, and it's like the bassist and they dress up as cowboy. The bassist
it's like,
and the drummer dress up as cowboys.
Yeah, and then they dress.
There's this whole joke about the village people. It's like
because
yet again that homophobia comes in through comedy and whatnot.
Well, yeah, they Connor and Eamon have their kind of weird get-ups, and then they wear like a worker guy and cowboy outfit. And he's like, why do we need a cowboy in the video? It's like the village people dress up like that. It's like, it's funny that saying that,
that you don't want to look as if
you don't want to look gay, though you're dressing up like a gay band.
Quotes, but now you're literally, that's the kind of the joke there.
Because at the time, it wasn't fully known that the village people were homosexual.
I guess.
I guess that,
but what happens is Barry and his father come along just randomly, kind of coincidental, and they kind of starts making fun of him. You kind of see that, no wonder why Barry's kind of a little messed up, bully kid, because his dad's a piece of shit human being. And we also learn that like Barry's parents are basically like drug addict, pieces of shit human beings, and that's kind of probably why Barry is,
the father kind of just like butts in and says, "What you guys doing?" They say they're making a video, and then Barry's, his dad kind of makes a joke saying, "You should join a band, Barry," blah blah blah, and then he's like, "Fuck off," and then the dad just backhands him, and then it just kind of sends him in a rage, and he like kicks a trash can or something, and then they just kind of leave, and you can see where the rage comes from.
Yeah. So, but they go away, and now they start making their first video.
Rafina shows up.
Rafina shows up, and she's dressed in almost like a kimono type of.
Not at first. Not at first. She's in normal clothes at first, and nice clothes.
And then she changes.
Yeah, she changes later, but she's in nice clothes at first, and then she starts like looking at what they're wearing, and she's like investigating, like, so maybe the cameraman can make this look good. I don't know. And then he's like, "Where's your cameraman?" It's like, Darren. I thought you were the manager. Yeah, I'm also the cameraman.
I'm also the cameraman. Gotta cut costs somewhere.
And he's like, well, maybe it's like, where's the makeup person? We don't have a makeup person. okay, I can do your makeup. And then, of course, the bassist is like, I ain't wearing makeup.
Right. And then, but they all end up doing it anyway.
Yeah, they all end up wearing makeup.
And they start recording, and then we get like kind of like the transition from like.
Well, what's cool is it shows the process too, because he actually builds storyboards, and he starts explaining how he wants to do certain things. And
he does.
And then
I want you to walk over here and do this.
Yeah, and then this is when that whole thing with the Japanese and she does the whole like head movement thing.
Right.
And he explains that to her, and then the video starts and you see her with the kimono on and like leaning against the fence, and they kind of run through it. And and this is where, you know, I would say the quote unquote musical aspects of the movie play in, and they mesh, and John Carney I think meshes it well within the plot, because in many musicals, I mean, we're talking like old like Busby Berkeley musicals and stuff like that, the music sequences are, you know, super lavish and just like over the top and just you know, all pizzazz and all that kind of stuff, and they really don't like serve the plot for the most part. They're just kind of there for spectacle. Whereas in this film, the music videos that we see serve the plot in the sense like, you know, that's what these kids are doing at that time. Yeah.
But the transition, I think, is rather seamless from like, okay, here's a kid holding a camera to now, okay, here's what the end result is of the whole video.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, we've had debates about what we consider to be musical, and of course, I'm a little bit more strict on my point of view. I think that when I call something a musical, it's about what he was talking about, where the music is almost kind of taking you into it's like a breaking the fourth wall type of thing, where you're like, you know, it's the music, though nobody questions you singing something random, and then you go back into normal life, or you're singing the whole movie, whatever type of musical it is. But in John Carney's movies, it's like he fuses the music is very much a part of the story, and the musical scenes don't feel like that they don't fit. You know, they actually fit for what's going on in the movie. And in this case, of course, they're shooting a music video, so then they got to play it out, you know, and so to me, you could say, maybe we could say that this is a neo-musical, you know, because you know,
that's an interesting
that could be the term for it,
for
that would make it more make sense to me, I guess. But because I don't see musicals being that way, but it is seamless, very much seamless. And so they go through the video, and as they're shooting it, you then kind of transition into just watching the whole video unfold, edited and everything. And it's funny, it's ridiculous. They're doing all the cliche 80s shots, looking into mirrors, seeing other people, and just like walking down alleyways for no reason, and like
sitting in cars.
Sitting in cars, and then at the end, the bass player's just like got vampire fangs, and he's just like smiling.
Oh yeah, and he's sitting in a car with vampire fangs.
Yeah, it makes no sense, but it shows kids being creative and having fun,
right? And just doing like
they're doing it. It has no meaning behind it, other than that they are expressing themselves and they're enjoying what they're doing, and that's where it should always start.
Yeah, so I think afterwards
they're like leaving a restaurant or something they ate at.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. Let's call it it's not a pizzeria, but I kind of assume it is.
Something like that.
Pizza. Yeah. Anywho, so I think Connor and Rafina are walking home.
Well, he's like, "Can I give you a ride?" And she's like, "You have a car?" And no, it's his bike. Yeah.
Yeah. Telling you, like, he's trying. He's trying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give him an A for effort. And then
there's a whole thing. I was gonna say there's a whole thing where they're like on their way back, and she's like, "We're taking longer than usual." Like, it's like he's purposefully taking the long way back to her house,
right?
You know, like in missing turns and stuff, so that he can keep talking to her, which I think is sweet.
He's trying.
Yeah, he's good. He's good.
I know he's working the angles. But I believe this is when she gets picked up by the older boyfriend, right?
Yeah. They stop, and she gives him a kiss, and right as she gives him a kiss on the cheek, not a full-on kiss. A dude in a car pulls up and he's, you know, like cliche
listening to Genesis.
And you know, he kind of butts in, and you know, basically once again he gets treated like kind of like a kid, you know, like, oh hey kid, I heard your song, hey, you know, sounds a little bit like Duran Duran, you know,
yeah, all right. So anywho, she goes off with him, and he's left kind of like, you know, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, he got the kiss, so he feels okay,
yeah,
but then he was like...
and then we transition to he's showing his brother the music video.
And he's like, I love it, yeah, he's like, this will be good.
This will be good. It's not quite there yet.
It's not good, but it will be good. He's like, you just need proper crew, you know, proper cameras. He's like, and then he's like, points out Rafina, he's like, she's amazing. She has to be in all the videos. She's got to be in all your videos. All of them.
And he does like, you see that brother camaraderie. So he's like, oh, did you kiss her yet? And he's like no. He's like, she's got, you know, she's older. She's like a year older, and she's got this old boyfriend and the older boyfriend guy or whatever. And then you know he kind of
explains that.
The conversation goes to like, he
seems pretty cool. He seems pretty cool. He was listening. It's like he was, you know, has a car, and he was listening to music, and he's like, what was he listening to? Phil Collins,
Genesis, Phil Collins.
He won't be a problem.
He says he won't be a problem.
He says no girl can really love a man who listens to Phil Collins.
Yeah, I mean that's a shot at every Phil Collins fan if I ever saw one.
Yeah.
And then we go to, then he goes to school, and he's wearing makeup, right?
Well, yeah, this is when he introduces his next, because throughout the movie, his style changes, and so now he has this god-awful skunk haircut, where he's got, like, the front of his hair, his bangs bleached, and he's got makeup on. Yeah.
And he has makeup on, and he walks into school like that, and Brother Baxter is not having it.
No.
Not having it whatsoever, and what is fascinating to me is he brings up that in the school, you know, handbook or rule book or whatever,
it says no.
That doesn't say anything about makeup, because I think the idea of men wearing makeup is so, you know, unbelievably like, oh, this could never happen. Therefore, they don't even have it in the rule book as something that people would break, because it would never happen in their minds. In their traditional, old-fashioned, you know, dumbass minds, they don't think men could ever wear makeup.
Yeah, and I love his argument. He's like, guys in like the, you know, 16th century or whatever, you know, Mozart probably wore makeup, you know, like.
Yeah, which he's probably right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably 100% right, but you know, that Catholic dogma bullshit that they feed us is... you know, says that can't happen, blah, blah, blah. So basically, he basically gets assaulted by by the brother.
It's something that you couldn't get away with today.
Yeah, you couldn't get away with that today. You forcibly grabs him and then like basically, you know, pushes.
He dunks his face in water and puts soap all over his face and then just leaves him in the bathroom. Just, you know.
Yeah, just leaves him crying in the bathroom, and then we get the transition to
he meets
after school.
Yeah, he meets
Rafina again.
Yeah,
and of course he's all messed up because his face is, you know,
and he still has that terrible haircut.
He still has the terrible haircut.
The bleach is terrible.
Yeah, it's not. That's what's interesting is that haircut made
a comeback
rounds again. Back in the 2000s, because that's very much in. I don't want to say like an emo haircut.
We call that the frosted tip look.
Yeah, the frosted tip look, which was big back in the late 90s.
But what they did do when they did do that was they actually spiked up their hair. This kid just let it lay flat.
Right. It was, I remember that, but I just mean like that haircut in general just looked like kind of the, what's his name? Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day?
From
kind of had that
Green
haircut.
Day, yeah. A little bit of that Green Day look, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say his next.
I'm getting emo and gothic confused with one another.
I was gonna say his next transformation looks more like Billy Joe.
Yeah,
where he's got the straight up black hair. But
yes.
So yeah, he goes to the park with Rafina, and they just kind of, you know, he
takes her out. He takes her out on a boat, right?
Not yet. They're just they go to the park, and this is where she calls him Cosmo.
Yes.
Yeah. She calls him. He's like, why you calling me? He's like, I'm gonna call you that now. All, you know, artists have cool names, you know, like nicknames. And so they go to the park and they're like walking around the park, and this is where he like brings up Evan, the boyfriend. You know, she's like, we're ordered off. You know,
yeah, he's gonna take me to London.
Yeah, she kind of brings up the London thing, and you know, he's like, but we're on and off, and he's like, yeah, you know, you should just, you know, take a break, you know, maybe for a year or so, you know, see, and so he makes jokes and things and shows his confidence, you know, and she kind of brings up a whole thing where he's like, are you threatened by Ev? He's like, why would I be? She's like, exactly, you know,
nice,
you know, so then they kind of like finish up their conversation. Does she bring? I don't think she brings up. Does she bring? No, I was gonna say she might have bring up her some of her family life in this conversation. She talks about her mom.
Oh yeah, how her mom is.
Her mom's manic depressant.
Yes. Yeah. Her father died.
Her father died. Was a drunk and got hit by a car.
Yeah, and I assume that her mother must be in some type of institution somewhere.
Yeah, this brings up a whole thing too about kind of depression, you know, like how you know, they say happy sad, you know, like, and I think it's a great theme of the story too, about how, you know, you really can't have happiness without some sadness. I mean, it's like that idea of like, you can't have any sunny days without some rainy days, you know, like that's very true.
There's got to be a balance.
There's got to be a balance, yeah. And you can't let, you know, don't let the sadness overwhelm your happiness. You have to be okay with your sadness. And so he brings that back to his brother, and his brother's like, she's like a monk, you know, like, how old is she again? 16?
Yeah.
And
but then he brings it up to like the bandmates, doesn't he?
Well, the sister butts in too, and she's like, she sounds so pretentious.
Yeah, so pretentious.
And then he brings up the whole vocation thing where he's like,
oh, yep, yeah. He's like,
modeling is a vocation. It's like, architecture isn't a vocation. What? You know, he's just trying to mess with her, I think, and just like,
I think he really
just trying to get her to bring a rise out of her because she's so
in a way
she's so even keel all the time, you know.
Yeah, in a way, he's trying to rile her out of like, because he mentions like, you wanted to be an artist, like a painter or something. We couldn't get the paintbrush out of your hands when you were younger, and it's kind of like she's kind of thrown that talent away, or
she's using it in a different way.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess to become an architect that has to do with drawing and design and stuff like that. But I guess to him that's more academic or mainstream than like pure art.
Yeah, I was gonna say she's doing it and she's kind of like, you know, turning it into a job, and it's not something you're doing out of love, just like for the love of it. Yeah. Then what do they do next?
I think this is when. Oh boy! I think this is when he writes that.
He goes to Eamon's house, and he's like, you know, will you help me write a song? And so they're in the bedroom and they're like listening to influences, and
because the brother gives him a bunch of records.
Yes, and he's like, I got some stuff to listen to, you know. So they're listening, and the rabbits are in the bed. They poop in the bed. And he's all like, why are you pooping in the bed? It's like, well, you can't put rabbits in the bed if you don't want them to poop in your bed. I mean,
come on now.
I mean, but at least they're like little pebbles, you know.
Yeah, yes, they are. They're tiny.
But this is like this is my favorite song.
They wrote the song Up.
Yeah, I love this song. Other than of course, the main "Drive It Like You Stole It" is really great.
That's my favorite.
It's great, but I really like this song. I think it's very catchy and very heartfelt, and it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and he writes it inspired by.
Yeah, and
Rafina, clearly.
It's you know, they start out on
it's a very sweet love song.
Yeah, it's an acoustic, and then I love how it transitions where he's like just got the acoustic guitar, and then then Eamon pops on the piano, and then it kind of transitions into the full band by the end of it, where they have the full band playing the song.
It's a beautiful it's not swiping, but almost panning transition.
Yeah, panning transition.
Because you know what it does? It does like a 360 pan. It's just two of them like late at night. Guitar, piano, and then the camera pans over to like the doorway, then pans back, and it's the full band.
It's the keyboard player, and then it shows the drummer and the bass player, and then it has the whole band there. And the mom comes in and she's dancing, she's loving it. She like kisses Eamon. Eamon's like, "Fucking get off me!
Come on, mom, get away!
Jeez,
come on now, what are you doing?"
Yeah,
and then
I think they're like entering school as a band for the
but he delivers the song.
Yeah, he
to
does.
Rafine, like puts it in like the mailbox.
During the kind of montage of the song, he delivers the song to her, and she's like listening to it, and she's like crying because it's so good.
Yeah, because it's such a good song.
And she hears the words and knows that it's about her.
Right.
You know, he's writing about her, and it's sweet, and but then I think doesn't it shows him like coming into school, and he's got like a whole new haircut now again. He's got like the all black hair.
Still with the Billy Joe Armstrong
yeah.
from like circa 99.
Yeah. And he talks about how like I think this is I might be getting ahead of myself, but he talks about how like we're gonna he talks about how like the world sucks around him. We got rapists and stuff, and he's like, but I'm just gonna deal with it, and I'm gonna let the bad stuff influence our music positively. I think that was the next part, but I can't remember. Maybe I'm wrong. But where do we go from here?
They meet Rafina and he like meet up again and Rafina talks to him about how like impactful the song was for her. How she.
Oh wait, they don't they go on the trip to do the next video, and that they get on the train.
Is it a train or is it a bus?
Or maybe it's a bus. I don't know. I thought it was maybe a train, but maybe it was a bus. One of them big buses, double deckers, maybe.
Right. And they're going.
They're going like to like it's near the ocean, obviously.
Yeah, they go to like they go to the ocean basically.
And it's like a.
I want to say isn't there a point where they go out on the boat together?
They do, but it's I think a little later.
Is that after? I think that's after this. Yeah,
it's a little later.
Because this is when their relationship is starting to kick into more closer proximity to one another.
Yeah. When they do
go to do this this music video, and this is the music video where she has to jump in the water.
Yeah, she's supposed to pretend to jump in the water, but she actually jumps in the water. And
but they're not. Yeah, and then and it's like but that's gonna look fake. It's not gonna look real. And they're like, okay, whatever. Then she like
literally jumps in the water.
Literally jumps in the water.
And he jumps in after her, and
she's like, "Don't stop recording." She's like, "Just jump in and save me, whatever." And then she's like, and he's like, "Could you swim?" And she's like, "No, I couldn't." And it's like,
wait, and then she has that moment, and I love it. It's a good line. It's a good lesson. Like you don't do your art halfway. You don't do it half-ass. You go full on.
No half measures.
Yeah, and then he kisses her. It's a big moment. He kind of gives her real first kiss. Right, and then then he ruins it because then he brings up Evan. He's like, "What about Evan?" And she's like, "You ruined it. Bro. Never mind."
Bro, what are you doing?
And then then they have another kind of scene where they're like walking down the boardwalk kind of deal. It's more like a stone walk, but But they're talking about like how from there they can see the mainland of London.
Yeah, it's like from here, like England. on a clear morning, you can see mainland England from here. Which it's only like 30 miles to Wales.
And he talks about how his grandfather has a boat out here, and he takes it out sometimes. And
he takes it out sometimes, and that would eventually lead to when they go out on a boat together, which I keep bringing up.
Yeah, he wants to get to that scene, guys.
I want to get to that boat. Come on now.
but we get some more information about like his brother here, because she brings up how he talks about him all the time, and he's like, my brother tried to leave once. He was going to go to Germany. Yeah. And then he never, his parents basically wouldn't let him leave unless he finished school. And then he ended up dropping out of school, and so his brother never left, and then she starts talking about how her dad might have physically abused her.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know, because this is my third time seeing the movie, and I missed that first two times. And at some point, I can't remember if it's happened yet in the movie, but we see that she's at, where she lives is
it's like a girl's home.
It's like a home for girls.
Yeah.
And
a boarding house,
like a boarding house or something like that, or something to do with some event that may have forced them to no longer be able to.
Well, if her mom's in a hospital somewhere, she has no parents.
Yeah,
look
she
at.
has to live somewhere. But I just mean, like, there could be other girls living in that home that come from, more dire situations than, like, parents passing away. That could be, like, a physical abuse situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or a sexual abuse situation. Then those girls have to be removed from, the parents and then put into, like, a home like this.
Yeah.
Or something like that. We're not really sure about that. They don't really delve into it, but you're right,
it's
Steven.
vague.
There is a hint there that there may have been physical or sexual abuse by her father at some point when she was younger.
Yeah.
And the way she brushes it off with a smile on her face is almost extra tragic.
Yeah, I mean,
because she can't process, because she still can't process it in a serious manner.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the scene in another movie, Almost Famous, where it's revealed to Kate Hudson's character that she was sold to one band for a pack of beer.
Right.
And she's just like crying.
She's beside herself.
But then she smiles and is like, what kind of beer?
What kind of beer?
Because she's obviously upset, but she deflects it. And
and sometimes people hide pain through comedy.
Yeah.
Self-deprecation can be often done through comedy. I know I've done it. But it's just like, it's that scene that hints at that. It's really powerful, small but powerful. But when they're coming back on that bus, there's a moment where, like, the other band members are telling jokes or whatever, and the camera pushes in on her face and pushes in on his face, and they're looking at each other from, like, across the aisle type of situation.
Well, I think they shared stuff about each other, and now they're having, like, a silent moment.
The connection there is now, bonded.
More codified.
Electric.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The looks mean more now, and it's, it's more sincere, more genuine now.
Yeah.
And it's visual filmmaking at its best.
Definitely.
Showing something without saying it, I think, is the best visual.
It's something
best
that they say
in
film school. They try to tell you that that's what you need to do all the time.
Yeah.
Though you don't always have to do that, but it's definitely shows when you can pull that off. Shows that you have some hone of your craft.
You don't need exposition all of the time.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't need a scene after this saying, like, hey, I saw you looking at me from across the bus. I know what that look
giving
means.
me eyes, you dang.
You don't need this nonsense.
Yeah.
What a movie. So this is where... Now, where are we moving to now? So they... do you want to get...
Well, this is where the meeting where the parents finally say they're going to divorce.
That was the one I was going to say. Yeah. Where it's
and the brother just is like, well, this is news to us.
It's like, it's about time.
Yeah, geez.
But there's a scene even before then where the parents are just going at each other so viciously that the kids all hide out and in the brother's room and listen to music and just start dancing. And it just shows the power of escapism through music can be really profound.
Definitely that. And just the fact that they bonded together was sweet too. That they came together and a lot of times you don't, they could have all went to their own rooms and they could all tried to, but they decided to help each other out. Especially the older brother really pushed everything, turning on the music and getting them.
He puts it as loud as he possibly can. They even get the sister to start, singing and dancing.
Yeah.
Because she's, was just sitting there not wanting to do anything.
Kind of like this scene in another movie that I'm going to bring up. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. Where Harry Potter picks up... I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Emma Watson's been wearing that necklace, the Horcrux, and she's in a bad mood. She's feeling sad. Then Harry Potter, pulls her up and starts dancing with her and brings her out of her bad mood for just a second, but...
I did not think we'd be making a Harry Potter reference.
Dude, I got shit coming out of everywhere, man.
I know.
I'll bring up anything. Okay, this is a connection to Salo. No, it's good.
Oh, okay, here we go.
I'm just kidding.
Waiting to hear this. So we finally get the scene where the parents are basically they're going to get a divorce. And basically what we've seen, there's a few other small scenes in here that are really underlying that idea. There's the one scene where Connor comes home and his brother's sitting on the stairs and the mother is sitting on the porch and the sun's going out. It's sunset. And the brother just says, she sits out here every day just to get that last glimpse of sunlight. Yeah. And reads her newspapers, and that's basically her life.
Well, he also, what I mean? And he also in an earlier scene brings up the fact that he thinks that she's been cheating on the dad.
It's like, and he's like, and then Connor's like, how do you know that? Because she gets dropped off like 100 feet from the house or something.
By her boss.
From the house.
By her boss. Yeah.
By her boss. Yeah. And it's like, it's pretty obvious. And there's small scenes like that show me as a viewer that Brendan may not be doing anything with his life, but he certainly observes a lot. He's
very perceptive.
Very perceptive and intelligent about what's going on.
Sometimes
what he sees.
It's giving you an example of that. Sometimes intelligent people just have bad luck. They don't, because the world doesn't always bow to the people with the greatest talent or the greatest minds. Sometimes you just got to be lucky.
Right, that's true. It also goes to show that the smartest and most perceptive people, aren't necessarily people with,
with the same ambitions.
I was going to say even with like college degrees or something like that, or PhDs or masters. Sometimes the most, smartest people don't have, the certificate from higher education.
Of course.
And it doesn't. I never believe that getting a diploma from anywhere automatically made you smarter than someone who doesn't have one. I think that's just the bullshit and lies they feed you in order for you to go to college and pay them tuition.
Yeah, money. I was gonna say.
There's a lot of lies and bullshit they feed us. And what is interesting is I think this movie cuts through a lot of that through exploration of, art and doing what you love versus what others expect you to do.
Yeah.
And so we get to see, like we said, the scene where we find out that the parents are splitting up, that the mother's going to go live with her boss, Tony, somebody we don't know.
And I love Brendan being like, look, I'm not staying with Tony.
Yeah, that's definitely not going to happen.
Because they explain like the living arrangements, and he's like,
like
you'll stay with me.
Going to get an apartment.
And then he's like, I'm not staying with fucking Tony. I'll sleep in the fucking streets before I sleep with fucking...
Before I do that.
Yeah.
So, and then they have to sell the house. Yeah. Because they can't... And they're only going to get half of what they paid for it, which is...
Not good.
That's a heck of a loss in any market, damn. But that's what's going to happen. And this is when... I think this is when there's a scene... I'm getting this all mixed up now towards second half of the movie. But there's the scene between he and his brother, which I don't know if that happens after this, or if it happens.
I think it does happen after this.
Yeah, and it's an amazing scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, where, this is pretty much the scene, because I think after this is when he takes her out on the boat.
Yeah, we'll get to that scene, man. But one thing at a time.
But so he has this scene where his brother, man, his
brother kind of loses it, and this is where
he breaks down basically, and just breaks down in a way where he just lays it all out there. Basically, his self-hate just comes fully to the surface.
He gets to, and this is where I really relate to the character, because I'm a person that, I tried to go to school and it didn't work for me, and
right.
There's been times in my life where I don't feel like I've been living up to my potential. I feel like I have something I can, share with people, but I just can't seem to find a way to become successful in that. And so he has this scene where he says, I used to be like, be able to like do, I used to play guitar. Did you know that? I used to play guitar. I used to be able to play that guitar and be really good at it. It's like, now I haven't played in a long time. I used to be like strong. I used to be able to do things. And now I don't.
I used to be able to play that guitar well. I used to ride hot girls. I could run 200 meters faster than anybody in my school. You're the youngest. You get to follow the path that I macheted through the jungle that is our mad family. I was alone with them for 6 years. You think they're crazy now? Think about what they were like when they were in their late 20s. Two Catholics in a rented flat with a screaming baby who just got married because they wanted to have sex. They didn't even love each other. I was in the middle of that, alone. And then you came along, thank God. And you followed the path that I cut for us, untouched. You just moved in my jet stream. And people laugh at me, Connor. The stoner, the college dropout, and they praise you, which is fine. But once, I was a jet engine.
You know, like I used to
basically, he says, you know, he used to be able to run like, you know, 100 meter faster than anybody at his school and stuff like that. And then he breaks, and then he goes into like.
Once again, it reminds me of the scene, another scene in a movie. It makes me think of On the Waterfront. I could have been a contender.
Somebody.
You know, I could have been somebody. I could have been a contender. And you know, he just kind of
falters. And what happens is, so he goes basically. He's like, you know, if you think they were, and he goes into like he's digging into his parents, where he's like, you know, if you think they're bad now, could you imagine them, you know, in their 20s when they just had me, like, and they were barely married. They just had me. They just got married so they could have sex, and they didn't really love each other, and they just had me, and I was a little kid growing up, and you know, with these two people who hated each other then.
He feels,
and it's like,
yeah,
and then he's like, but I was around, you know, 6 years before, you know, any of you, like, you came along and stuff like that, and it was tough back then. But he's also like, dude, like I blazed a path for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
a jet engine. I wanted, you know, I blazed a path for you just so that you could just follow me, you know, in my wake. And basically he says, now I have and now you're doing so well and I have nothing.
Well, he kind of talks. He kind of shows that he has a little bit of a resentment. You know, where he's like, I did. You know, you wouldn't be where you're at if it wasn't for what I did. To kind of show that he did something with his life, you know, like.
Yeah, but what is interesting is I think that resentment towards his brother is not true resentment.
It's not a bad resentment. It's just self-loathing, like you've said before.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's coming out through his self-hate, and he's lashing out at his brother. Yeah. I don't think he means like that he hates his brother because of that.
No.
I think he hates himself more that he was not able to do more for his brother.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, do more,
like that his jet engine basically, you know.
There's probably a tinge of jealousy.
Yeah, tinge of jealousy because his brother is doing what he could not do. And we'll see, you know, I mean, towards the end of the movie, he has to help his brother do what he could not do. And it's really, really difficult to watch other people fulfill your own dreams because their dreams have passed you by.
It's definitely in a hopeful way, though. It's not in a bad way. He
I'm just saying, like,
he helps his brother in a way, and it's in a good way. It's not. Right. It doesn't come off as like he's like giving up something. He's just
But it just like it must be. There must be some level of difficulty, but also some level of happiness, like you just said.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
We'll get to it.
Yeah.
But basically, now they have a cool kind of, you know, breaking, you know, falling out, if you will.
Well, no, I mean, his brother gets upset, like breaks a bunch of records.
He starts breaking his records,
and then Connor leaves the room and kind of goes to the bathroom and cries a little bit. He's upset. So then I think this is when do they practice the new song? Yeah, they do the practice for that new song, Drive It Like You Stole It, for the first time, right?
No, we got to get to my boat scene, Stephen.
I think there's a scene where they're practicing the song.
That happened. Like doesn't he show up? Yeah, okay. I think
there's like just a scene of them practicing the new song.
And at the.
No, not. I mean, in the living room.
Place.
In the living room.
Yeah, Eamon's place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it shows him after playing that song. That's kind of like the first verse. Then it shows him showing up to Rafina's, and he's like, "You want to go on an adventure?"
We want to go on an adventure, and this is when we go out to it's like Dalkey Island, and his granddad's motorboat, little tiny motorboat there, and this is when they have a romantic date, if you will.
Yeah, a little getaway to a little island, and then they kind of just start sitting down and they're talking about the lyrics to the new song. That's why I know that they practiced that song before, because we needed an introduction, and then
yes, we did,
and then he kind of breaks down the lyrics. He's like, I don't know the lyrics off the top of my head, but he kind of breaks down each line and says that's about my parents. This line's about you. And then it gets to a point where they, she kind of says, you were very attractive, driving that boat out here. He's kind of like like a captain. I like that.
Yeah, and they also like share like how like her dream is to leave Ireland and go to London, and I think this is when they see the ferry that goes to London.
Yeah, in the distance they see the ferry going
in the distance, and it's leaving. It's like it's filled with Irish people leaving Ireland to go to London. And then they do exchange a kiss, I believe.
Yeah, this is the first mutual kiss.
Right.
And then there's a funny moment where like after the first part of the kiss, they're like kind of just sitting there enjoying the moment, and then he wants to kiss her again, but then she like already took a bite of like a cracker.
Yeah.
And he's like
a little too anxious there.
Yeah, and then she's like, wait a second. Okay, you can go ahead. Okay, you can kiss him again.
And we also get a scene somewhere around here where he confronts Barry confronts him again.
It was a little early. This was a little bit earlier.
I just want to bring it up because it does kind of bring up the Barry character again, where like he basically challenges him, saying like Barry's like insignificant and he's not going to really do anything. He's just empty threats.
Well, yeah, he says that you have the ability to stop things. You don't have the ability to create things.
Which is really fascinating when it comes to standing up to a bully.
Yeah.
So, and then this is when Connor has this idea of what he wants to do
for the music video.
For the music video, which is going to be kind of like an American prom, like almost Back to the Future type of video.
Yeah.
Where it's going to be, she's going to wear like this big 50s like, gown, if you will, and she's going to walk in and walk through the halls with him and run away with him in the video, if you will. And it's they have this thing together. But what ends up happening, and I mean, we're just moving along here right away because we're already like forever into the episode, but she ends up leaving for London.
Yeah. He brings up on the boat ride back that when the video shoot was going to be, and she kind of like doesn't say anything to him that she's already going to be gone by that time. And
he goes to like see her, and she's gone, and like one of the girls there is like, "Hey, you're the kid from the band," and he's like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Well, yeah, we all had some money riding on you, but, whether she was going to choose you or choose Evan, I think the guy's name is," and she chose him, and then he has this kind of like this. I would say this is one of the negative parts of the movie for me, and it's kind of a what's the word I'm looking for, nitpick. He has like this melancholic feeling for about 10 minutes.
Well, yeah,
about 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, he goes off, he gets his guitar, and he kind of like goes and plays a slower version of one of the songs.
Yeah, and he's all sad and stuff, and then
But what he does is he decides to put it in his music, which is it's his outlet for everything.
Right, and I will say that's all well and good, but literally like 10 minutes later, he's walking by the place and she's like walking into the place. She's walking into.
Well, we don't need this movie to be 2.5 hours long.
I know, but I'm like, he's sad for like 10 minutes, and then like she shows up and it's like, "Hey, Rafina, you're back from London," and she's like, "Oh no, I'm not Rafina. I'm her twin sister."
She tries to play it off because she's not wearing all the makeup she usually wears.
No,
and she's trying to pretend she's somebody else, and
I always find it fascinating when she takes her makeup off. And she almost like de-ages 10 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because in a way, I think the makeup, she's using it in a way to kind of age herself up and perhaps become someone else, someone that she prefers to be rather than her own self.
Yeah.
I feel like that could be playing in there as well. And
so they go to the park again,
Right.
And they're sitting on the bench and she's explaining what happened. So she basically went with
like
Evan.
The dude just like left her.
Yeah, she went to London with Evan, and apparently they got in some argument, and apparently she probably said something that got her to get hit. I mean, he hit her in the face.
And she's like, "Oh, I probably deserve it." And I'm like, "No, you probably."
I mean, of course,
didn't.
there's no reason, but like it's she obviously antagonized him in some way, and she But the thing is somebody that's been physically abused always thinks it's their fault. So
I would say that could perhaps come up again where she could have thought it was that she deserved it, if you will, which obviously she probably didn't, or definitely didn't. So, but then she says a comment that really kind of bothers him, because in a way she expresses herself that she's kind of wasting her life by being here,
and she just, groups him in with it somewhat.
Yeah, she kind of lumps him in with her, the life that she's living that she doesn't like.
And she compares it to her mom's, upbringing.
Yeah, she says, "I'm turning into my mom."
My mom had me at a young age and was hanging around with schoolboys. She's like, I'm here. I am going to work at McDonald's, and I'm going to, be hanging around a 15-year-old schoolboy. What am I doing? I'm turning into my mom. And then he takes offense to that and says, I got to go do something. Got to go. And he's like, I'll go work on the music video. And she's like, "Hey, can I come?" And he's like, No. And then he just leaves her, which I think she kind of deserved it in a way. I think she was just being a little bit in her own head and didn't realize what she said was going to upset him.
Yeah, and we kind of skipped over this. We got to backtrack a little bit. But what prompted him to go see Rafina, and then when he found out that she wasn't there, is that she never showed up for that music video that he was shooting at the school, that Back to the Future one, which had "Drive It Like You Stole It," which is my favorite song of the movie, which I've listened to 50 times. And we once again get a scene where it's actually a great bittersweet scene for me, just in general, because none of the kids that are in the video apparently ever saw Back to the Future, which is kind of sad in general.
God, they can't dance worth shit.
Yeah, they also can't dance. But anywho, so he does, and then it transitions to what the music video in his head is supposed to be, or what he wants it to be, or what his dream is of it. And of course it's him playing, and then she walks in with the dress and looks at him, and he looks at her, and it's the video that he wants. And then and the song's amazing.
Well, I mean, it's great,
and it's extravagant, and all kind of crazy stuff happens.
The sweetest part of it to me is the parents. When you see the parents come in, and it's like him hoping, it's showing that he really hopes his parents could be together and happy. And that,
or that, in fact, his music could do something to help them.
Yeah.
Or that they could be proud of him, because this leads to something else that's been happening throughout the whole movie. The parents are just so caught up in their own shit.
Yeah, they're not around.
They don't do any, they're not around for their kids at all. They're not really involved in their life at all. And it shows you a different type of parenting that is, could be very well detrimental to children, the absentee parents, essentially, caught up in their own lives, and that happens a lot, whether it's 1985 or now.
Yeah,
that happens, and it just shows that there's nothing he can do to save his parents.
Yeah, and another great part of the video was the Brennan's dancing knife fight.
Yeah, you notice that he's dressed like James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause?
Yes.
The same jacket.
He also very much looks like Seth Rogen. I think he looks very much like Seth Rogen in that scene.
Jack Rayner?
Yeah.
I could see
Except
that.
he has an underbite that's very apparent.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, then he has a knife fight with a bully, and it's just and then after they stop fighting, they just start dancing and stuff.
He's just like,
it's a weird fight.
It's all
weird
good.
Fight.
Okay, whatever.
It's all good, whatever. Yeah. And then at one point, a motorcycle shows up.
Well, that's him. That's Jack Rayner's.
Brother Baxter shows up and does 20 somersaults and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all right, it's just great euphoric. And then it ends, and it's just that
back in the stupid gym,
that empty freaking gym. Rafina's not there, and it's just
he's like, okay,
right, we're gonna shoot this thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Come on now. And then that's when he goes and sees Rafina, and then we get to what we just saw. But what we also didn't cover is that he's going to be doing a gig.
Well, it's I think it's right after this. They're in the hallway and they see that there's a flyer for a dance at the end of the year kind of dance, and I love the back and forth because it's just what you would think that they would do. And he's just Eamon's we got to focus on exams, and then Connor's like, Eamon's like, is there going to be girls at the dance? And then he's like, yeah. It's like, okay, I think we should do it.
Yeah, I love when they go for their exams and they're looking at the and it's basically, I guess, the exam that decides something. I don't really know.
A midterm or something.
The British school system. I don't know. Finals. Who knows? But anywho, like they look at their exams and they're just like, what is this? What are we doing? And Barry just tosses it up and throws it away.
He says,
to sleep.
He's just like, suck my balls. And he just,
he just goes to sleep. Oh man!
And the thing is I think that's
brings you back to high school.
I think that particular scene, how it goes down, because it goes through all the band members, then it goes to Barry at the end, and it kind of foreshadows the fact that he kind of becomes one of them at the end.
Yeah, he becomes their roadie.
Yeah.
So they're going. So Rafina and Connor are quote unquote broken up, if you will, but he still has to play this gig at the end. And he invites his brother to play at the gig, and he even asks him, "Hey, man, you
come play a solo?
You want to play a solo?" And he's like, "Oh, man, yeah, I will," or something. Of course, he doesn't. He doesn't show up. No.
But he, at the same time, the next thing they do is they go and this is when they go see Barry, and they say they need to do one more thing. So they go see Barry at his place, and his parents are being assholes, asking him Barry to get beer and shit, and he's like, "Look," Darren's like, "Look. You know what's being in a band's cool. It's like one thing we need is a roadie. It's like roadie has to be able to fight. Be able to being in a band, everybody's got each other's backs, and that's really what Barry needs. Barry doesn't have any friends, obviously, because he's an asshole.
Right.
But to showing that somebody sticking their neck out for him and saying, hey, you can be part of our group. You don't have to have no friends. You can have.
Not only that, but he's also like, you're probably going to flunk out of school. What are you going to do all day? You're going to stay here with your
parents and
your terrible parents
and watch daytime TV and
get wasted?
Yeah, I mean, he's like, I guess, yeah, oh yeah. And he's like, we're going to be going on gigs and going on the road and meeting women and
and doing stuff.
Yeah.
You want to be a part of this or what?
So yeah, then there's like they leave and it's like another slow motion shot and Barry's like giving the middle finger to his parents.
And then so they're gonna do this big gig. I think it's like 25-minute long gig or whatever.
Then before
they had to develop new music for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say the last thing he does though is Connor does drop off another tape to Rafina before he goes to the dance.
Yes, he does.
And she doesn't come out, and he just watches him like kind of drop it off, and then the dance starts and.
Yeah, he does some songs we haven't heard of before. And
the first song he does is that song "Girl," which I like.
Yes.
Complicated Girls, which is a reference to something that the teachers said to him earlier in the movie, where he was drawing a picture of the band, and he was like, he had a picture of Rafina there, and he's like, "Who's that?" And he's like, "Is that your girlfriend?" And he's like, "Well, no, it's complicated." And the teacher's like, "All the complicated boys and girls," and then that kind of inspired the song for later, and. So he does that song, and the crowds, who was kind of against him, is now kind of getting livelier. Then I think do they do a second song after that I think it kind of like.
I think it cuts to her, and it cut Rafina, and then. It shows that he dropped off that thing and he left her like a letter or something.
Well, I know they kind of skip over and he does the slow song.
Yeah, and then he does the slow song.
And then that's where we get the montage where she sees the tape and she listens to the song that he's singing at the moment. And she goes to the park and she's crying because it's so beautiful and
right. Yeah, then and then after he does the slow song, because one like the band protests and the audience protests like, hey, don't we've got them entertained.
It's pretty funny.
You never want to do that. Like you always kind of want to. I know, Steven, you know this a lot better than I do, but like there's certain set song lists and whatnot, and
people want to dance. If you're at a dance, people want to dance. So most people want. I mean, obviously you can slow dance, but most people want to have some energy and run around and jump around. So some bands don't necessarily like to play slow songs in a live show. But that's I don't know. I'd never really heard that might have been an 80s thing, but yeah, they kind of make a funny joke about it. And I love Eamon, who is always just down for anything. He's always down to take risks. He's always down to, write songs. I love when he comes to visit him when they're writing that song and he says, hey, you want to help me write a song? And then he's like, anytime. You know, I love that moment, you know, where they kind of have that bond over writing and creating art together. But yeah, so he's like, you know, we got to play the slow song, and then the bass player and the drummer are like, we can't do that. They love us. We can't do a slow song. It'll kill us. And then Eamon's like, it's a bold. Let's do it.
I like it.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So he does that, and then they do their last song, which is called Brown Shoes.
Yeah.
And it is dedicated to Brother Baxter.
Yeah.
And basically, Brother Baxter is like, because I guess they're chaperoning.
I love this.
He and the brothers are chaperoning, and then like he's like, "Oh, forget that. Turn the lights on. Turn the lights on."
I love it because it's like they try to end the show. They try to turn the lights on, and then some random dude comes up. It's like, no, turn the lights off. Turn the lights on. And then he like breaks it with a fire extinguisher.
With a fire extinguisher.
And then Father Baxter comes up and punches the kid in the face, and then knocks.
And then throws him out.
Yeah. It's
like,
hilarious.
Oh, and then and so it's called Brown Shoes. It's basically just
the story of him and his Brother Baxter's first kind of, you know, their relationship, basically.
Oh yeah, but it's a song that just ripping Brother Baxter to shreds.
Yeah, and he makes all these masks.
Basically, call him a piece of shit,
yeah.
Fascist, racist, you know, authoritarian garbage person.
Yeah.
And
he makes all these he makes all these face masks of Brother Baxter so everybody can wear them.
Yeah, because he had like he tore like something out of like the yearbook and had them make like 200 copies of it. But before the song even starts, like some dude gets on stage and then Barry like throws him off.
He's like,
and he's like, yeah,
I gotta do something. Yeah.
he gets his moment in the sun. And then so he's playing it, and so they're playing the song, and then Rufina walks in towards the end of the song, which I'm like, just kind of missed all the good song,
middle of the song, middle of the song. It's about it's in like in the bridge, you know. It's
That's
still
when she shows up, and then you know he sees her, she sees him, smiles, etc., etc. And
then as the song's ending, it shows them walk out of the dance together, hand in hand. Yes, and they go, which I love the shot where they're like going down the alley, and then some dude's throwing up in the alley as they're, you know, having this romantic moment. You just see some dude throwing up. And so then they go back to his house, Connor's house, and you see Brendan, who's writing something. He's writing, and apparently he's writing lyrics. And so they come in, and Connor's like, you know, everything went well. It was a great show. And then Rufina,
he meets Rufina for the first time because, you know, they've heard so much about each other. And he says, hey, can you drive me to where Granddad's boat is? Yeah. He says, like, we're going to London. And he's like, oh, so when you want me to do this? And he goes, right now. Like, oh, right now?
He's like, do you have any money?
You got any money?
No, we got her music. She's got her pictures.
Yep. And so he's like, all right. And so Connor like goes to his parents' room, I think, to
get the keys to the boat.
Keys to the boat. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That makes a lot more sense. And he basically says goodbye to his mom, and then he leaves, and his brother takes him down there, and they sing their goodbyes. And he's like, hey, he gives him the lyrics that you just mentioned. He says, you know, put music to them. Call as soon as you get there.
You'll probably die.
yeah. And like they hug and they part ways. He says, "Yo, take care of my brother," and they start driving away. And then a song by Adam Levine plays.
Yeah. And this scene literally gets me emotional every time.
Oh, did you cry, Steven?
Dude, I cry. I cry every time. Because this very much.
Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say this very much plays into the whole idea of a lot of the relatability to the character, Brendan's character, because I'm an older brother, and like just in this moment he's seeing his brother kind of succeed where he failed,
right?
And but there's such a brotherly love. There's such a he wants him to succeed, and he's kind of living through him. And he just has this moment where he's watching him sail off and getting further and further away, and he just kind of like jumps in the air for joy. And every time it gets me. Like I just.
Oh yeah, I cried at the end of it. The song is called "Go Now," and it's performed by Adam Levine and co-written by Adam Levine.
I was gonna say they have him and John Carney have a relationship. They're friends because he's also in Begin Again. He's a character in Begin Again.
He is.
So
so that song is playing while while the boat's going away, and like Steven said, the brother just starts cheering, and then he gets in the car and he starts cheering again.
He's just emotional. He's just kind of overwhelmed
overwhelmed, and it, like I said earlier, it's just like facilitating your dream through your brother. And it's not like that whole vicarious thing where you force your dream on someone else,
sure.
which you see a lot of parents do. It's watching your brother live your dream and then helping him.
He helped guide. He realized that though he didn't necessarily make it himself, he helped make sure that his brother. He in a sense he did make it through him.
And in a way, it's extremely selfless act.
It's like the almost the role of what a teacher is to a student. Where you get off on that love of seeing others succeed by teaching them what you know and hoping that they can succeed themselves. And that's kind of what he ends up playing. Honestly, he is, you could say, the Miyagi of the movie. Yeah. He's giving him all the advice that perpetuated his love for the music and for writing and
right.
is now gotten him to this place where he's leaving off and taking chances, and he's met a girl he loves, and they're all taking chances, and it's great, and it's a powerful ending.
It's a very powerful ending, and for me, it's I still think that like I said, selflessness, but also that the ability to, like we said in the scene earlier, the ability to recognize your own struggles and your own faults, and then overcome those to then help someone else, I think is extremely emotional for me, and it's really just an amazing ending. And the film ends with them like they're one. Steven, I don't know much about maritime things, but that boat is really tiny to get.
Yeah, I was gonna say
to England.
They're taking a chance, definitely taking a chance, trying to sail that boat across a large body of water.
A relative large body.
It's not like it's like an ocean, but it's definitely like a channel.
No.
A channel.
Yeah, if you look at a map, Ireland and England are very close to one another, but London specifically is, if my world geography helps me out, it's towards southern England. So just to get to the mainland of England and then to get to London would be difficult. But none of that technical nonsense is really what's important. It's the metaphor of just leaving home, taking that leap of faith, following your heart, all of those things, following your dream, and just doing it, as opposed to just talking about doing it. Yeah, talking or thinking about doing it, and them just going off and doing it is really powerful. And at one point, he's like, "You may want to sit down." And she's like, "Why?" Because basically the waves are gonna get a little bumpy, and the water's gonna splash on them and stuff. And then that's what happens. They get drenched with water. Then that big ferry comes across. They almost like drive into it. So they stop. And people are waving at them, and then basically he puts the motor back into high gear and follows that boat. And in a way, and Stephen, don't start crying on me now.
Oh no.
The boat for me perhaps symbolizes the brothers. How he said he was a jet engine. Carving a path for him. That boat, in a way, could symbolize that.
Sure.
And in a way, he's following his brothers still.
Yeah, it's a big metaphor. It's a big symbolism for his brother, following his brother's path once again.
Yeah.
And also, we can't end without saying, Rafina, I think with her kind of arc, I think she had to get past some of her own, her own trials that were holding her back. She's thinking so much about how her parents, she's using the things that happen with her parents as things that are also kind of creating roadblocks for her. And now she's, lining herself up with somebody that actually cares about her. Her parents didn't care about her. I mean, at least her father. And the daddy issues thing, which, Brendan brings up.
They bring that up at one point.
Yeah. And women that have maybe trouble relationships with their fathers end up picking other men that are not good for them. And of course, Evan ended up hitting her. So, obviously not a great guy. And so sometimes that happens. You've seen that in a lot of movies where the main character who likes this girl, that girl's dating some kind of douchebag guy. And, he wishes, just kind of like perks of being a wallflower. Hey, how can we get, somebody that we like to know that we like, that they deserve better, and you just gotta, it's the whole Paul Rudd scene, you have to let them know that they deserve more, and so I think that she figures out by the end of the movie that she deserves better. She deserves somebody like him that will actually show his love and is good to her, and she accepts that love at the end and goes with him. So yeah, she kind of has her own arc too, and it's all
most
good,
definitely.
Man.
And that's how the movie ends.
Kind of ends on a close up of his face and him kind of facing his future.
Right,
he's a futurist.
Whatever that may be.
He's a futurist. So but that's Sing Street.
That is Sing Street by John Carney. Came out 2016. Was one of our favorites of that year.
It definitely was because we've done this. This episode's about an hour and 45 minutes long, so it's definitely we talked about.
It's literally about as long as the whole movie is.
Yeah, we talked through the whole movie. I was happy to, when Andrew decided to pick this one. I figured we would get into this one pretty hard. But yeah, so now that we are done with Sing Street, now it's my turn to pick next episodes. And because Andrew has been so good to me, picking movies that I love for some reason. I don't know. I mean, I know we line up on movies pretty well. We like a lot of the same stuff, but he's just been really going for me. He did Satyajit Ray, which he knows I love Satyajit Ray, and then he did Sing Street. So now I'm gonna have to do something for him. I know he's a big fan of a certain filmmaker, and I'm gonna do one of his films. We're gonna do a David Lynch movie.
Oh, here we go.
We're gonna do Eraserhead.
Wow.
Let's do Eraserhead. Wow. Because it's his first movie. It's his first movie. And,
it is, yeah.
And it is one of the great debuts. And it's it's a short and sweet one too. It's only about an hour and a half long, and this came out in 1977, and it's very much an experimental film. So this will be a different type of movie. We haven't really seen. Yeah. We haven't done a movie like this before. So it'll be a new type. I wanted to do something maybe horror, and this kind of has a little bit of a horror element to it.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting one. So next episode we're going to do Eraserhead by David Lynch. So be ready for that one.
Sounds good to me.
I know you. I figured you.
Now I gotta re-traumatize myself by watching it.
Yes.
By watching it.
But
that's a film.
That's a film.
Is certainly a film.
Now, when I said David Lynch, what were you thinking I was going to say?
I was thinking Mulholland Drive, actually.
Really?
Or maybe Lost Highway.
See, if I was going to pick
thinking Dune.
If I was going to pick my favorite one, I would have picked Lost Highway.
Oh, really? I didn't know that was your favorite.
I would say it's probably my favorite at this point, but honestly, I like Mulholland Drive okay, but it's definitely I have to watch it again. I've watched it I think twice, and it's not landed with me like it's landed with other people, but I really like Lost Highways, and of course Elephant Man's great too, but I figured we'll go with the first movie, see where Dave, so we can get kind of into the beginnings of Lynch, and we could probably work our way up his filmography over time, and because I know you're a person that likes to start at beginnings.
Yeah, that's a good place to start.
As
at the beginning of things.
Yes.
You get to see the progression
of his work,
of filmmakers and whatnot. Sometimes, some filmmakers, start off at the peak and then work their way down.
Yeah.
But most of the greats started off and then worked their way up to their best stuff, or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm always down to talk David Lynch. It'll be the first time we've ever talked David Lynch here on Cinema Discovery Project, or in any of the stuff that's.
Yeah, I don't know that we've really talked about him much. So we'll probably get into a little bit of his just overall, his state in film, where his place is, and then talk about Eraserhead. So where can we find you, Andrew?
You can find me on Twitter at Cabzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Cabzilla Productions.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can find me on Instagram at Cinema Discovery Project and on Letterboxd at Cinema Discovery. Thank you for listening. Go to Apple Podcasts or Podbean to get this audio. And hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.